the Mahabharata of Krishna-Dwaipayana Vyasa. Translated into English prose from the original Sanskrit text by Pratap Chandra Roy C.I.E. This free ebook has been downloaded from holybooks.com. Udyoga Parva. Section 121, Bhagavat Parva. Narada said, removed from his place and pushed away from his seat, with heart trembling in fear and consumed by burning remorse, with his garlands dimmed in luster and his knowledge clouded, shorn of his crown and bracelets, with head swimming and every limb relaxed, divested of ornaments and robes, incapable of being recognized, sometimes not seeing the other residents of heaven, filled with despair, and his understanding a perfect blank, King Yayati fell headlong towards the earth. And before the king fell down, he thought within himself, what inauspicious and sinful thought was entertained by me, in consequence of which I am hurled from my place. And all the kings there, as also the Siddhas and the Apsaras, laughed at seeing Yayati losing his hold and on the point of falling down. And soon, O king, at the command of the king of the gods, there came a person whose business it was to hurl down those whose merits were exhausted. And coming there, he said unto Yayati, extremely intoxicated with pride, there is none whom thou hast not disregarded. In consequence of this thy pride, heaven is no longer for thee. Thou deservest not a residence here, O son of a king. Thou art not recognized here, go and fall down. Even thus the celestial messenger spoke unto him. Nahusha's son then said, repeating the words 3 times, if fall I must, let me fall amongst the righteous. And saying this, that foremost of persons that had won high regions by their acts, began to think of the particular region whereon he should fall. Beholding meanwhile 4 mighty kings, viz., Pratardana, Vasumanas, Sivi, the son of Usinara and Ashtaka assembled together in the woods of Nimisha, the king fell amongst them. And those monarchs were then engaged in gratifying the Lord of the Celestials by performance of the sacrifice known by the name of Vajapaya. And the smoke arising from their sacrificial altar reached the very gates of heaven. And the smoke that rose thus, looked like a river connecting both the earth and the heaven. And it resembled the sacred stream Ganga while descending from heaven to earth. And smelling that smoke and guiding his course by it, Yayati, the Lord of the universe, descended on the earth. And the king thus fell amongst those 4 lions among rulers who were all endued with great beauty, who were foremost of all the performers of sacrifices, who were indeed his own relatives, and who resembled the 4 regents of the 4 quarters and looked like 4 mighty sacrificial fires. And thus, in consequence of the exhaustion of his merits, the royal sage Yayati fell amongst them. And beholding him blazing with beauty, those kings asked him, saying, who art thou? Of what race, country, or city art thou? Art thou a yaksha or a god, a gandharva or a rakshasa? Thou does not seem to be a human being. What object hast thou in view? Thus questioned, Yayati answered, I am the royal sage Yayati. Fallen am I from heaven in consequence of the expiration of my virtue. Having desired to fall amongst the righteous, I have fallen amongst you. The kings then said, O foremost of persons, may that wish of thine be realized. Accept thou our virtues and the fruits of all our sacrifices. Yayati replied saying, I am not a Brahmana competent to accept a gift. On the other hand, I am a Kshatriya. Nor is my heart inclined towards lessening the virtues of others. Narada continued, about this time, Madhavi, in course of her purposeless wanderings came there. Beholding her, those monarchs saluted her and said, what object hast thou in coming here? What command of thine shall we obey? Thou deservest to command us, for all of us are thy sons, O thou that art endued with wealth of asceticism. Hearing these words of theirs, Madhavi was filled with delight, and approaching then her father, she reverentially saluted Yayati. And touching the heads of all her sons, that lady engaged in ascetic austerities said to her father, "Being my sons, these all are thy daughter's sons, O King of Kings. They are not strangers to thee. These will save thee. The practice is not new, its origin extends to antiquity. I am thy daughter Madhavi, O King, living in the woods after the manner of the deer. I also have earned virtue. Take thou a moiety. And because, O King, all men have a right to enjoy a portion of the merits earned by their offspring, it is for this that they desire to have daughters' sons. Even this was the case with thyself, O King, when thou madest me over to Galava." At these words of their mother, those monarchs saluted her, and bowing down unto also their maternal grandsire, repeated those very words in a loud, incomparable and sweet voice, and making as it were, the whole earth resounded therewith, in order to rescue that maternal grandsire of theirs, who had fallen down from heaven. And at that time Galava also came there, and addressing Yayati said, "Accepting an eighth part of my ascetic austerities, ascend thou to heaven again." Thus ends the 121st section in the Bhagavatyana Parva of the Udyoga Parva. Section 122, Bhagavatyana Parva. Narada said, as soon as that bull among men, King Yayati, was recognized by those virtuous persons, he rose again to heaven, without having had to touch the surface of the earth. And he regained his celestial form and had all his anxieties entirely dispelled. And he rose again, decked with celestial garlands and robes, adorned with celestial ornaments, sprinkled with celestial scents and furnished with heavenly attributes, and without having been compelled to touch the earth with his feet. Meanwhile Vasumanas, who was celebrated in the world for his liberality, first addressing the king, uttered these words in a loud voice: "The merit that I have won on earth by my unblameable conduct towards men of all orders, I give unto thee. Be it all thine, O King. The merit that one winneth by liberality and forgiveness, the merit that is mine in consequence of the sacrifices I have performed, let all that also be thine." After this, Pratardana, that bull among Kshatriyas, said, ever devoted to virtue as also to war, "The fame that hath here been mine as a Kshatriya, in consequence of the appellation of hero, by which I am known, be that merit thine." After this, Sivi, the intelligent son of Usinara, said these sweet words, "Unto children and women in jest, danger or calamity, in distress or at dice, I have never spoken a falsehood. By that truth, which I never sacrificed, ascend thou to heaven. I can, O King, give up all objects of desire and enjoyment, my kingdom, yea life itself, but truth I cannot give up. By that truth, ascend thou to heaven, that truth for which Dharma, that truth for which Agni, that truth for which he of 100 sacrifices, have each been gratified with me, by that truth ascend thou to heaven." And lastly, the royal sage Ashtaka, the offspring of Kusika's son and Madhavi, addressing Nahusha's son Yayati, who had performed many hundreds of sacrifices, said, "I have, O Lord, performed hundreds of Pundarika, Gosava and Vajapaya sacrifices. Take then the merit of these. Wealth, gems, robes, I have spared nothing for the performance of sacrifices. By that truth ascend thou to heaven." And that king thereupon, leaving the earth, began to ascend towards heaven, higher and higher, as those daughters' sons of his, one after another, said those words unto him. And it was thus that those kings by their good acts, speedily saved Yayati, who had been hurled from heaven. It was thus that those daughters' sons, born in 4 royal lines, those multipliers of their races, by means of their virtues, sacrifices, and gifts, caused their wise maternal grandfather to ascend again to heaven. And those monarchs jointly said, endued with the attributes of royalty and possessed of every virtue, We are, O king, thy daughters' sons. By virtue of our good deeds ascend thou to heaven. Thus ends the 122nd section in the Bhagavatyana Parva of the Udyoga Parva. Section 123, Bhagavatyana Parva. Narada said, sent back to heaven by those righteous kings, distinguished by the liberality of their sacrificial presents, Yayati possessed of daughters' sons, dismissed them and reached the celestial regions. Attaining to the eternal region obtained through the merit of his daughters' sons, and adorned by his own deeds, Yayati, bathed in a shower of fragrant flowers and hugged by perfumed and delicious breezes, blazed forth with great beauty. And cheerfully received back into heaven with sounds of cymbals, he was entertained with songs and dances by various tribes of Gandharvas and Asuras. And diverse celestial and royal rishis and charanas began to pay their adorations to him. And deities worshipped him with an excellent arga and delighted him with other honors. And after he had thus regained heaven and tranquility of heart, and had once more become freed from anxiety, the grandsire, gratifying him by his words, said, Thou hadst earned the full measure of virtue by thy earthly deeds, and this region that thou hadst won is eternal, as thy deeds are in heaven. Thou hadst, however, O royal sage, destroyed thy acquisitions by thy vanity alone, and thereby covered the hearts of all the denizens of heaven with darkness, in consequence of which, none of them could recognize thee. And since thou couldst not be recognized, thou wert hurled hence, saved once more by the love and affection of thy daughters' sons, thou hast once more arrived here, and regained this unchangeable, eternal, sacred, excellent, stable and indestructible region won before by thy own deeds. Thus addressed, Yayati said, O Holy One, I have a doubt which it behoveth thee to dispel. O grandsire of all the worlds, it behoveth me not to ask any one else. Great was my merit, augmented by a virtuous rule over my subjects for many thousands of years and won by innumerable sacrifices and gifts. How could merit so great be exhausted so soon, in consequence of which I was hurled hence? Thou knowest, O Holy One, that the regions created for me were all eternal. Why were all those regions of mine destroyed, O thou of great effulgence? The grandsire answered, saying, Thy merit, augmented by a virtuous rule over thy subjects for many thousands of years and won by innumerable sacrifices and gifts, was exhausted by only one fault, in consequence of which, thou wert hurled from this region. That fault, O King of Kings, was thy vanity, for which thou hadst become an object of contempt with all the residents of heaven. O royal sage, this region can never be rendered eternal by vanity or pride of strength, or malice or deceitfulness, or deception. Never disregard those that are inferior or superior, or in the middle station. There is not a greater sinner than he who is consumed by the fire of vanity. Those men that will converse upon this fall and reascension of thine will, without doubt be protected even if overtaken by calamity. Narada continued, O monarch, even such was the distress into which Yayati fell in consequence of vanity. And such was the distress into which Galava fell, owing to his obstinacy. They that desire their own good should listen to friends that wish them well. Obstinacy should never be entertained, for obstinacy is always the root of ruin. For this reason, O son of Gandhari, forsake vanity and wrath. O hero, make peace with the sons of Pandu. Avoid anger. O king, that which is given away, that which is done, the austerities that are praised, the libations that are poured on fire, not one of these is ever destroyed or suffereth any diminution. None else again enjoyeth the fruits of these save he that is their agent. He that succeedeth in understanding this truly superior and excellent history, that is approved by persons of great learning as well as by those that are freed from anger and lust, and that is enforced by various references to scriptures and reason, obtaineth a knowledge of virtue and profit and desire, and enjoyeth the sovereignty of the whole world. Thus ends the 123rd section in the Bhagavat-yana Parva of the Udyoga Parva. Section 124, Bhagavat-yana Parva. Dhritarashtra said, O Holy One, it is even so as thou, O Narada, sayest. My wishes also are precisely such, but O Holy One, I have no power to carry them out. Vaisampayana continued, the Kuru king, having said these words unto Narada, then addressed Krishna and said, Thou hast, O Kesava, told me that which leadeth to heaven, what is beneficial to the world, consistent with virtue and fraught with reason. I am not, however, O sire, independent. Duryodhana never doth what is agreeable to me. Do thou therefore, O mighty armed Krishna, O best of persons, strive to persuade that foolish and wicked son of mine, who disobeyeth my commands. O mighty armed one, he never listeneth to the beneficial words of Hrishiksa, of Gandhari or of wise Vidura or of other friends headed by Bhishma, all of whom seek his good. Do thou therefore, thyself counsel that crooked, senseless and wicked-souled prince of evil disposition and sinful heart. By doing this, O Janardana, thou shalt have done that noble act which a friend should ever do. Thus addressed, he of Vrishni's race, conversant with the truths of virtue and profit, approached nearer to the ever wrathful Duryodhana and said unto him these sweet words. O Duryodhana, O best of the Kurus, listen to these words of mine, uttered especially for thy good, as also O Bharata for that of thy followers. Thou art born in a race that is distinguished for its great wisdom. It behoveth thee to act righteously as I indicate. Possessed of learning and endued with excellent behavior, thou art adorned with every excellent quality. They that are born in ignoble families or are wicked-souled, cruel and nameless, they only, O sire, act in the way that seemeth acceptable to thee. In this world, the inclinations of those only that are righteous seem to be consistent with the dictates of virtue and profit. The inclinations, however, of those that are unrighteous seem to be perverse. O bull of Bharata's race, the disposition that thou art repeatedly manifesting is of that perverse kind. Persistence in such behavior is sinful, frightful, highly wicked and capable of leading to death itself. It is besides causeless, while again, thou canst not, O Bharata, adhere to it long. If by avoiding this which is productive only of woe, thou wilt achieve thy own good, if, O chastiser of foes, thou wilt escape from the sinful and disreputable deeds of thy brothers, followers, and counselors. Then, O tiger among men, make peace, O bull among the Bharatas, with the sons of Pandu, who are all endued with great wisdom and great bravery, with great exertion and great learning, and all of whom have their souls under complete control. Such conduct will be agreeable to and conducive to the happiness of Dhritarashtra, who is endued with great wisdom, of grandsire Bhishma, Drona, the high-souled Kripa, Somadatta, wise Valika, Aswathaman, Vikarna, Sanjaya, Vaivangseti, and of many of thy kinsmen, O chastiser of foes, and many of thy friends also. The whole world, O sire, will derive benefit from that peace. Thou art endued with modesty, born in a noble race, hast learning and kindness of heart. Be obedient, O sire, to the commands of thy father and also of thy mother, O bull of Bharata's race. They that are good sons always regard that to be beneficial which their fathers command. Indeed, when overtaken by calamity, every one recollects the injunctions of his father. Peace with the Pandavas, O sire, recommend itself to thy father. Let it therefore, O chief of the Kurus, recommend itself to thee also with thy counsellors. That mortal, who having listened to the counsels of friends doth not act according to them, is consumed at the end by the consequences of his disregard, like him who swalloweth the fruit called Kimpaka. He that from folly doth not accept beneficial counsels, unnerved by procrastination and unable to attain his object, is obliged to repent at last. He on the other hand, who having listened to beneficial counsels accepted them at once, abandoning his opinion, always winneth happiness in the world. He that rejects the words of well-meaning friends, regarding those words as supposed to his interest, but accepts words that are really so opposed, is soon subjugated by his force. Disregarding the opinions of the righteous, he that abideth by the opinions of the wicked, soon maketh his friends weep for him in consequence of his being plunged into distress. Forsaking superior counsellors, he that seeketh the advice of inferior ones soon falleth into great distress and succeedeth not in saving himself. That companion of the sinful, who behaveth falsely and never listeneth to good friends, who honoureth strangers but hateth those that are his own, is soon, O Bharata, cast off by the earth. O bull of Bharata's race, having quarrelled with those sons of Pandu, thou seekest protection from others, viz., those that are sinful, incapable and foolish. What other man is there on earth besides thee who, disregarding kinsmen that are almighty charioteers and each of whom resembleth Sakra himself, would seek protection and aid from strangers? Thou hast persecuted the sons of Kunti from their very birth. They have not been angry with thee, for the sons of Pandu are indeed virtuous. Although thou hast behaved deceitfully towards the Pandavas from their very birth, yet, O mighty armed one, those distinguished persons have acted generously towards thee. It behoveth thee therefore, O bull of Bharata's race, to act towards those principal kinsmen of thine with equal generosity. Do not yield thyself to the influence of wrath. O bull of Bharata's race, the exertions of the wise are always associated with virtue, profit, and desire. If indeed all these three cannot be attained, men follow at least virtue and profit. If again these three are pursued separately, it is seen that they that have their hearts under control, choose virtue. They that are neither good nor bad, but occupy a middle station, choose profit, which is always the subject of dispute, while they that are fools choose the gratification of desire. The fool that from temptation giveth up virtue and pursueth profit and desire by unrighteous means is soon destroyed by his senses. He that seeketh profit and desire should yet practice virtue at the outset, for neither profit nor desire is really dissociated from virtue. O king, it hath been said that virtue alone is the cause of the three, for he that seeketh the three may, by the aid of virtue alone, grow like fire when brought into contact with a heap of dry grass. O bull of Bharata's race, thou seeketh, O sire, by unrighteous means this extensive empire, flourishing with prosperity and well known to all the monarchs of the earth. O king, he that behaveth falsely towards those that live and conduct themselves righteously, certainly cutteth down his own self, like a forest with an axe. One must not seek to confound his understanding, whose overthrow one doth not like, for if one's understanding is confounded, one can never devote his attention to what is beneficial. One that hath his soul under control never, O Bharata, disregardeth anybody in the three worlds. No, not even the commonest creature, for less those bulls among men, the sons of Pandu. He that surrendereth himself to the influence of anger loseth his sense of right and wrong. Rank growth must always be cut off. Behold, O Bharata, this is the proof. At present, O sire, union with the sons of Pandu is better for thee than thy union with the wicked. If thou makest peace with them, thou mayst obtain the fruition of all thy wishes. O best of kings, while enjoying the kingdom that has been founded by the Pandavas, thou seekest protection from others, disregarding the Pandavas themselves. Reposing the cares of thy state on Dusasana, Durvaisaha, Karna and Suvila's son, thou desirest the continuance of thy prosperity, O Bharata. These however are far inferior to the Pandavas in knowledge, in virtue, in capacity for acquiring wealth and in prowess. Indeed, O Bharata, let alone the four I have mentioned, All these kings together with thee at their head are incapable of even looking at the face of Bhima, when angry on the field of battle. O sire, this force, consisting of all the kings of the earth, is indeed at thy elbow. There are also Bhishma and Drona, and this Karna and Kripa, and Bhurishrava and Somadatta, and Aswathaman and Jayadratha. All these together are incapable of fighting against Dhananjaya. Indeed, Arjuna is incapable of being vanquished in battle, even by all the gods, asuras, men and Gandharvas. Do not set thy heart for battle. Seest thou the man in any of the royal races of the earth, who having encountered Arjuna in battle can return home safe and sound? O bull of Bharata's race, what advantage is there in a universal slaughter? Show me a single man who will defeat that Arjuna. By defeating whom alone may victory be thine. Who will encounter that son of Pandhu in battle, who had vanquished all the celestials with the Gandharvas, Yakshas and Panagas at Khandavaprastha? Then also the marvelous account that is heard of what happened at Virata's city, touching that encounter between one and many, is sufficient proof of this. Hopest thou to vanquish in battle Arjuna, who, when excited with rage, is invincible, irresistible, ever victorious and undeteriorating? Arjuna, that hero who gratified the god of gods, Shiva himself in fight. With myself again as his second, when that son of Pritha will rush to the field of battle against an enemy, who is there that is competent to challenge him then? Can Purandara himself do so? He that would vanquish Arjuna in battle would support the earth on his arms, consume in rage the whole population of the earth and hurl the very gods from heaven. Look at thy sons, thy brothers, kinsmen, and other relatives. Let not these chiefs of Bharata's race all perish on thy account. Let not the race of Kauravas be exterminated or reduced. O king, let not people say that thou art the exterminator of thy race and the destroyer of its achievements. Those mighty Kaurvariyas, the Pandavas, if peace be made, will instill thee as the Yuvraja, and thy father Dhritarashtra, that lord of men, as the sovereign of this extensive empire. Do not, O sire, disregard the prosperity heart is awaiting thee and is sure to come. Giving to the sons of Pritha half the kingdom, win thou great prosperity. Making peace with the Pandavas and acting according to the counsels of thy friends and rejoicing with them, thou art sure to obtain what is for thy good forever and ever. Thus ends the 124th section in the Bhagavatyana Parva of the Udyoga Parva. Section 125, Bhagavatyana Parva. Vaisampayana said, hearing, O bull of Bharata's race, these words of Kesava, Bhishma, the son of Santanu, then said unto vindictive Duryodhana, Krishna hath spoken to thee, desirous of bringing about peace between kinsmen. O sire, follow those counsels and do not yield to the influence of wrath. If thou dost not act, O sire, according to the words of the high-souled Kesava, neither prosperity nor happiness nor what is for thy good wilt thou ever have. The mighty armed Kesava, O sire, hath said unto thee what is consistent with virtue and profit. Accept thou that object and do not, O king, exterminate the population of the earth. This resplendent prosperity of the Bharatas amongst all the kings of the earth, thou wilt, during the very life of Dhritarashtra, destroy through thy wickedness, and thou wilt also, through this arrogant disposition of thine, deprive thyself with all thy counsellors, sons, brothers, and kinsmen of life, if, O thou foremost of Bharata's race, thou transgressest the words of Kesava, thy father, and of wise Vidura, words that are consistent with truth and fraught with benefit to thyself. Be not the exterminator of thy race, be not a wicked man, let not thy heart be sinful, do not tread the path of unrighteousness. Do not sink thy father and mother into an ocean of grief. After Bhishma had concluded, Drona also said these words unto Duryodhana, who, filled with wrath, was then breathing heavily. O sire, the words that Kesava hath spoken unto thee are fraught with virtue and profit. Santanu's son Bhishma also hath said the same. Accept those words, O monarch. Both of them are wise, endued with great intelligence, with souls under control, desirous of doing what is for thy good, and possessed of great learning. They have said what is beneficial. Accept their words, O king. O thou possessed of great wisdom, act according to what both Krishna and Bhishma have said. O chastiser of foes, do not, from delusion of understanding, disregard Madhava. They that are always encouraging thee, are unable to give thee victory. During the time of battle they will throw the burden of hostility on others' necks. Do not slaughter the earth's population. Do not slay thy sons and brothers. Know that host is invincible, in the midst of which are Vasudeva and Arjuna. If, O Bharata, thou dost not accept the truthful words of thy friends, Krishna and Bhishma, then, O sire, thou wilt surely have to repent. Arjuna is even greater than what Jamdagni's son hath described him to be. As regards Krishna, the son of Devaki, he is incapable of being resisted by even the gods. O bull of Bharata's race, what use is there in telling thee what is really conducive to thy happiness and good? Everything hath now been said unto thee. Do what thou wishest. I do not wish to say anything more unto thee, O foremost of Bharata's race. Vaisampayana continued, after Drona had ceased, Vidura also, otherwise called Kshatri, casting his eyes on Duryodhana, said unto that vindictive son of Dhritarashtra, O Duryodhana! O bull of Bharata's race, I do not grieve for thee. I grieve however for this old couple, viz., Gandhari and thy father. Having thee of wicked soul for their protector, of whom they will shortly be deprived, they will have to wander with anybody to look after them, and deprived also of friends and counsellors, like a pair of birds shorn of their wings. Having begotten such a wicked son, who is the exterminator of his race, alas, these two will have to wander over the earth in sorrow, subsisting on alms. After this King Dhritarashtra, addressing Duryodhana seated in the midst of his brothers and surrounded by all the kings, said, Listen, O Duryodhana, to what the high-souled Sori hath said. Accept those words which are eternal, highly beneficial and conducive to what is for thy highest good. With the aid of this Krishna of faultless deeds, we amongst all the kings, are sure to have all our cherished objects firmly united by Kesava be reconciled, O sire, with Yudhishthira. Seek thou this great good of the Bharatas, like unto an august ceremony of propitiation. Through Vasudeva's agency, bind thyself closely with the Pandavas. I think the time for that is come. Do not let the opportunity pass away. If however thou disregardest Kesava, who from a desire of achieving what is for good, is soliciting thee to make peace, then victory will never be thine. Thus ends the 124th section in the Bhagavat-yana Parva of the Udyoga Parva. Section 125, Bhagavat-yana Parva. Vaisampayana said, hearing these words of Dhritarashtra, both Bhishma and Drona, who sympathized with the old king, again addressed disobedient Duryodhana and said, As yet the two Krishnas are not accoutred in mail, as yet Gandiva resteth inactive, as yet Daumya doth not consume the enemy's strength by pouring libations on the war fire, as yet that mighty bowman Yudhishthira, having modesty for his ornament, doth not cast angry glances on thy troops, so let hostility cease. As yet that mighty bowman, Bhimasena, the son of Pritha, is not seen stationed in the midst of his division, so let hostility cease. As yet Bhimasena doth not, mace in hand, stalk on the field of battle, grinding hostile divisions, so let peace be made with the Pandavas. As yet Bhima doth not, with his hero-slaying mace, make the heads of warriors fighting from the backs of elephants roll on the field of battle, like the palmyra fruits in the season of their ripening, so let hostility cease. As yet Nakula and Sahadeva, Drishtadyumna of Prishata's race and Virata and Sikhundin and Sisipal's son, accoutred in mail and all well versed in arms, do not penetrate thy ranks, like huge crocodiles penetrating the deep, and pour their arrowy showers, so let hostility cease. As yet fierce winged shafts do not fall upon the delicate bodies of the assembled kings, so let hostility cease. As yet fierce weapons made of iron and steel, shot unerringly by mighty bowmen well skilled in arms, endued with lightness of hand and capable of hitting howsoever long distance, do not penetrate the breasts of warriors, smeared with sandal and other fragrant unguents, and adorned with golden garlands and gems, so let hostility cease. Let that elephant among kings, Yudhishthira the just, receive thee with an embrace while thou salutest him bending thy head. O bull of Bharata's race, let that king, distinguished for the liberality of his sacrificial presents, place on thy shoulder that right arm of his, the palm of which beareth the marks of the banner and the hook. Let him, with hands begemmed and red, adorned with fingers, pat thy back while thou art seated. Let the mighty armed Vrikodara, with shoulder broad as those of the Sala tree, embrace thee, O bull of Bharata's race, and gently converse with thee for peace. And O king, saluted with reverence by those three, viz., Arjuna and the twins, smell thou their heads and converse with them affectionately. And beholding thee united with thy heroic brothers, the sons of Pandu, let all these monarchs shed tears of joy. Let the tidings of this cordial union be proclaimed in the cities of all the kings. Let the earth be ruled by thee with feelings of brotherly affection in thy bosom, and let thy heart be freed from the fever of jealousy and wrath. Thus ends the 126th section in the Bhagavatyana Parva of the Udyoga Parva. Section 127, Bhagavatyana Parva. Vaisampayana said, hearing in that assembly of the Kurus these words that were disagreeable to him, Duryodhana replied unto the mighty armed Kesava of great fame saying, It behoveth thee, O Kesava, to speak after reflecting on all circumstances. Indeed uttering such harsh words thou, without any reason, findest fault with me alone, addressed regardfully as thou always art by the sons of Pritha, O slayer of Madhu. But dost thou censure me, having surveyed the strength and weakness of both sides? Indeed, thyself and Kshatri, the king, the preceptor and the grandsire, all reproach me alone and not any other monarch. I however do not find the least fault in myself. Yet all of you, including the old king himself, hate me. O repressor of foes, I do not even after reflection behold any grave fault in me, or even, O Kesava, any fault however minute. In the game at dice, O slayer of Madhu, that was joyfully accepted by them, the Pandavas were vanquished and their kingdom was won by Sakuni. What blame can be mine as regards that? On the other hand, O slayer of Madhu, the wealth that was won from the Pandavas then, was ordered by me to be returned unto them. It cannot again, O foremost of victors, be any fault of ours that the invincible Pandavas were defeated once again at dice and had to go to the woods. Imputing what fault to us, do they regard us as their enemies? And, O Krishna, though really weak, why do the Pandavas yet so cheerfully seek a quarrel with us, as if they were strong? What have we done to them? For what injury done to them do the sons of Pandu, along with the Srinjayas, seek to slaughter the sons of Dhritarashtra? We shall not, in consequence of any fierce deed, or alarming word of theirs, bow down to them in fear, deprived of our senses. We cannot bow down to Indra himself, let alone the sons of Pandu. I do not, O Krishna, see the man observant of Kshatriya virtues, who can, O slayer of foes, venture to conquer us in battle, let alone the Pandavas. O slayer of Madhu, the very gods are not competent to vanquish Bhishma, Kripa, Drona and Karna in battle. If, O Madhava, we are, in the observance of the practices of our order, cut off with weapons in battle, when our end comes even that will lead us to heaven, even this, O Janardana, is our highest duty as Kshatriyas, viz., that we should lay ourselves down on the field of battle on a bed of arrows. If, without bowing to our enemies, ours be the bed of arrows in battle, that, O Madhava, will never grieve us. Who is there, born in a noble race and conforming to Kshatriya practices, that would from fear bow to an enemy, desirous only of saving his life? Those Kshatriyas that desire their own good, accept regardfully this saying of Matanga, viz., that as regards a Kshatriya, one should always keep himself erect, and never bow down, for exertion alone is manliness. One should rather break at the knots than bend. A person like me should only bow down to the Brahmanas for the sake of piety, without regarding anybody else. As regards persons other than Brahmanas, one should, as long as one lives, act according to Matanga's saying. Even this is the duty of Kshatriyas. Even this is ever my opinion. That share in the kingdom which was formerly given them by my father shall never again, O Kesava, be obtainable by them as long as I live. As long, O Janardana, as King Dhritarashtra liveth, both ourselves and they, sheathing our weapons, O Madhava, should live in dependency on him. Given away formerly from ignorance or fear, when I was a child and dependent on others, the kingdom, O Janardana, incapable of being given away again, shall not, O delighter of Vrishni's race, be obtainable by the Pandavas. At present, O Kesava of mighty arms, as long as I live, even that much of our land which may be covered by the point of a sharp needle shall not, O Madhava, be given by us unto the Pandavas. Thus ends the 127th section in the Bhagavatyana Parva of the Udyoga Parva. Section 128, Bhagavatyana Parva. Vaisampayana said, reflecting for a moment, with eyes red in anger, he of Dasara's race, addressing Duryodhana in that assembly of the Kurus, then said these words, Wishest thou for a bed of arrows? Verily, thou shalt have it with thy counsellors. Wait for a short while, a great slaughter will ensue. Thou thinkest, O thou of little understanding, that thou hast committed no offence against the Pandavas. Let the assembled monarchs judge. Grieved at the prosperity of the high-souled Pandavas, thou conspirest, O Bharata, with Suvala's son about the gambling match. O sire, how could those virtuous, honest, and superior kinsmen of thine otherwise engage in such a wicked act with the deceitful Sakuni? O thou that art endued with great wisdom, gambling robs even the good of their understanding, and as regards the wicked, disunion and dire consequence spring from it. It was thou who hadst devised with thy wicked counsellors, that terrible source of calamity in the form of the gambling match without consulting with persons of righteous behavior. Who else is there, capable of inspiring a brother's wife in the way thou didst, or of dragging her into the assembly and addressing her in language thou hadst used towards Draupadi? Of noble parentage and endued with excellent behavior, and dearer to them than their very lives, the queen consort of Pandu's sons was treated even thus by thee. All the Kauravas know what words were addressed in their assembly by Dusasana unto those chastisers of foes, the sons of Kunti, when they were about to set out for the woods. Who is there capable of behaving so wretchedly towards his own honest kinsmen, that are ever engaged in the practice of virtue, that are untainted by avarice, and that are always correct in their behavior? Language such as becomes only those that are heartless and despicable, was frequently repeated by Karna and Dusasana and also by thee. Thou hadst taken great pains to burn to death, at Varanavata, the sons of Pandu with their mother, while they were children, although that effort of thine was not crowned with success. After this, the Pandavas with their mother were obliged to live for a long while, concealed in the town of Ikshakra in the abode of a Brahmana. With poison, with snakes and cords, thou hadst by every means sought the destruction of the Pandavas, although none of thy designs was successful. With such feelings when thou hadst always acted towards them so deceitfully, how canst thou say that thou hast not offended against the high-souled Pandavas? Thou art not, O sinful man, willing to give them their paternal share in the kingdom, although they are begging it of thee. Thou shalt have to give it them. This, when divested of prosperity, thou shalt be laid low. Having like a heartless fellow, done innumerable wrongs to the Pandavas and behaved so deceitfully towards them, thou seekest now to appear in a different garb. Though repeatedly solicited by thy parents, by Bhishma, Drona, and Vidura to make peace, thou dost not yet, O king, make peace. Great is the advantage in peace, O king, both to thyself and Yudhishthira. Peace, however, does not recommend itself to thee. To what else can it be due, but to thy loss of understanding? Transgressing the words of thy friends, thou canst never attain to what is for thy benefit. Sinful and disreputable is that act which thou, O king, art about to do. Vaisampayana continued, while he, of Dasara's race, was saying this, Dusasana addressed vindictive Duryodhana and said unto him these words in the midst of the Kurus, If, O king, thou dost not willingly make peace with the Pandavas, verily the Kauravas will bind thee hand and foot and make over thee to the son of Kunti. Bhishma and Drona and thy own father, O bull amongst men, will make over us three, viz, Vikatna's son, thyself, and myself, to the Pandavas. Vaisampayana continued, hearing these words of his brother, Dhritarashtra's son. Wicked, shameless, disobedient, disrespectful and vain. Suyodhana, breathing heavily like a great snake, rose up from his seat in anger and disregarding Vidura and Dhritarashtra and the great king Valika, and Kripa and Somadatta and Bhishma, and Drona and Janardana, in fact all of them, went out of the court. And beholding that bull among men leave the court, his brother and all his counsellors, and all the kings followed him. And seeing Duryodhana rise and leave the court in anger with his brothers, Santanu's son Bhishma said, the enemies of that person who, abandoning both virtue and profit, follow it the impulses of wrath, rejoice on beholding him plunged into distress at no distant date. This wicked son of Dhritarashtra, this one unacquainted with the true means of accomplishing his objects, this fool that is wrongly vain of his sovereignty obeyeth only the dictates of wrath and avarice. I see also, O Janardana, that the hour of all those Kshatriyas is arrived. For all those kings from delusion, have with their counsellors followed Duryodhana. Hearing these words of Bhishma, the lotus-eyed hero of Dasara's race, possessed of great powers, addressing all those that were still there headed by Bhishma and Drona, said, even this is great transgression, of which all the elders of the Kuru race are becoming guilty, for they do not forcibly seize and bind this wicked king in the enjoyment of sovereignty. Ye chastiser of foes, I think the time hath come for doing this. If this is done, it may still be productive of good. Listen to me, ye sinless ones. The words I will speak will soon lead to beneficial results, if indeed ye Bharatas ye accept what I say in consequence of its recommending itself to you. The wicked son, of ill-regulated soul, of the old Bhoja king having usurped his father's sovereignty during the latter's lifetime, subjected himself to death. Indeed, Kansa, the son of Ugrasena, abandoned by his relatives, was slain by me in a great encounter, from desire of benefiting my kinsmen. Ourselves with our kinsmen, then having paid due honors to Ugrasena, the son of Ahuka, installed that extender of Bhoja's kingdom on the throne. And all the Yadavas and Andakas and the Vrishnis abandoning a single person, viz, Kansa for the sake of their whole race, have prospered and obtained happiness. O king, when the gods and asuras were arrayed for battle and weapons were upraised for striking, the Lord of all creatures, Parameshtin, said thus something which applies to the case at hand. Indeed, O Bharata, when the population of the worlds was divided into two parties and was about to be slaughtered, the divine and holy cause of the universe, viz., the Creator said, the Asuras and the Daityas with the Danavas will be vanquished, and the Adityas, the Vasus, the Rudras and other dwellers of heaven will be victorious. Indeed, the gods and Asuras, and human beings and Gandharvas and snakes and Rakshasas will, in rage, slaughter one another in this battle. Thinking so, the Lord of all creatures, Parameshtin, commanded Dharma, saying, binding fast the Daityas and the Danavas, make them over to Varuna. Thus addressed, Dharma, at the command of Parameshtin, binding the Daityas and the Danavas, made them over to Varuna. And Varuna, the Lord of the waters, having bound those Danavas with Dharma's noose, as also with his own, keepeth them within the depths of the ocean, always guarding them carefully. Binding in the same way Duryodhana and Karna and Sakuni, the son of Subala and Dusasana, make them over to the Pandavas. For the sake of a family, an individual may be sacrificed. For a village, a family may be sacrificed. For the sake of a province, a village may be sacrificed. And lastly, for the sake of one's self, the whole earth may be sacrificed. O monarch, binding Duryodhana fast, make peace with the Pandavas. O bull among Kshatriyas, let not the whole Kshatriya race be slaughtered on thy account. Thus ends the 128th section in the Bhagavatyana Parva of the Udyoga Parva. Section 129, Bhagavatyana Parva. Vaisampayana said, hearing these words of Krishna, King Dhritarashtra lost no time in addressing Vidura, who was conversant with all dictates of virtue. And the king said, Go, O child, unto Gandhari, possessed of great wisdom and foresight, and bring her hither. With her I will solicit this wicked-hearted son of mine. If she can pacify this wicked wretch of evil heart, we may yet be able to act according to the words of our friend Krishna. It may be that speaking words in recommendation of peace, she may yet succeed in pointing out the right path to this fool afflicted by avarice and having wicked allies. If she can dispel this great and dreadful calamity about to be occasioned by Duryodhana, it will then conduce to the attainment and preservation of happiness and peace forever and ever. Hearing these words of the king, Vidura, at Dhritarashtra's command, brought thither Gandhari, possessed of great foresight. And Dhritarashtra then addressed Gandhari and said, Behold, O Gandhari, this thy son of wicked soul, transgressing all my commands, is about to sacrifice both sovereignty and life in consequence of his lust for sovereignty. Of wicked soul and little understanding, he hath like one of uncultivated mind left the court, with his sinful counsellors, disregarding his superiors and setting at naught the words of his well-wishers. Vaisampayana said, hearing these words of her husband, that princess of great fame, Gandhari, desirous of what was highly beneficial, said these words. Bring hither without loss of time that kingdom-coveting sick son of mine. He that is of uncultivated heart and sacrificeth both virtue and profit, doth not deserve to govern a kingdom. For all that, however, Duryodhana, who is destitute of humility, hath by every means obtained a kingdom. Indeed, O Dhritarashtra, thou so fond of thy son, art very much to be blamed for this, for knowing well his sinfulness, thou followest yet his counsel. That son of thine, completely possessed by lust and wrath, is now the slave of delusion and is therefore incapable, O king, of being now forcibly turned back by thee. Thou art now reaping the fruit, O Dhritarashtra, of having made over the kingdom to an ignorant fool of wicked soul, possessed by avarice and having wicked counsellors. Why is the king indifferent today to that disunion which is about to take place between persons related so closely? Indeed, beholding thee disunited with those that are thy own, thy enemies will laugh at thee. Who is there that would use force for getting over that calamity, O king, which can be overcome by conciliation and gift? Vaisampayana continued, Kshatri then and at Dhritarashtra's command, and of his mother's also, once more caused vindictive Duryodhana to enter the court. Expectant of his mother's words, the prince re-entered the court, with eyes red as copper from wrath and breathing heavily as a snake. And beholding her son, who was treading in a wrong path, enter the court, Gandhari rebuked him severely and said these words for bringing about peace. Gandhari said, O Duryodhana, attend, O dear son, to these words of mine that are beneficial to thee as also to all thy followers, words that thou art competent to obey and that will conduce to thy happiness. O Duryodhana, obey thou the words of thy well-wishers, those words, which that best of the Bharatas thy father and Bhishma and Drona and Kripa and Kshatri have spoken. If thou makest peace, thou wouldst by that render homage to Bhishma, to thy father, to me, and to all thy well-wishers with Drona at their head. O thou of great wisdom, nobody, O best of the Bharatas, succeedeth by his own desire alone in acquiring and keeping or enjoying a kingdom. One that hath not his senses under control, cannot enjoy sovereignty for any length of time. He that hath his soul under control and is endued with great intelligence, can rule a kingdom. Lust and wrath wean away a man from his possessions and enjoyments. Conquering these foes first, a king bringeth the earth under his subjection. Sovereignty over men is a great thing. Those that are of wicked souls may easily desire to win a kingdom, but they are not competent to retain a kingdom when won. He that desireth to obtain extensive empire must bind his senses to both profit and virtue, for if the senses are restrained, intelligence increased, like fire that increaseth when fed with fuel. If not controlled, these can even slay their possessor, like unbroken and furious horses, capable of killing an unskillful driver. One that seeketh to conquer his counsellors without conquering his own self, and to conquer foes without conquering his counsellors is soon vanquished himself, and is ruined. He who conquereth his own self first, taking it for a foe, will not seek in vain to conquer his counsellors and enemies afterwards. Prosperity worshippeth greatly that person who hath conquered his senses and his counsellors, who inflicteth punishments on transgressors, who acteth after deliberation and who is possessed of wisdom. Lust and wrath that dwell in the body are deprived of their strength by wisdom, like a couple of fishes ensnared in a net with close holes. Those two in consequence of which the gods shut the gates of heaven against one, who freed from worldly propensities is desirous of going thither, are excited by lust and wrath. That king who knoweth well how to conquer lust and wrath and avarice and boastfulness and pride, can own the sovereignty of the whole earth. That king who is desirous of gaining wealth and virtue and vanquishing his enemies, should always be engaged in controlling his passions. Influenced by lust, or from wrath, he that behaveth deceitfully towards his own kinsmen or others, can never win many allies. Uniting thyself with those chastisers of foes, the heroic sons of Pandu who are all endued with great wisdom, thou canst, O son, enjoy the earth in happiness. What Bhishma, the son of Santanu, and that mighty warrior, Drona have told thee is, O son, quite true. Krishna and Dhananjaya are invincible. Seek thou therefore the protection of this mighty armed one, this one that is not worried by exertion, for if Kesava becometh gracious, both sides will be happy. That man who is not obedient to the wishes of wise and learned friends, always seeking his prosperity, only gladdeneth his enemies. O son! There is no good in battle, no virtue, no profit. How can it bring happiness then? Even victory is not always certain. Do not set thy heart therefore on battle. O thou of great wisdom, Bhishma and thy father and Valika formerly gave unto the Pandavas their share of the kingdom from fear. O chastiser of foes, never think of disunion with them. Thou beholdest today the fruit of that peaceful cession in the fact of thy sovereignty over the whole earth, with all its thorns removed by those heroes. Give, O chastiser of foes, unto the sons of Pandu what is their due. If thou wishest to enjoy with the counsellors even half the empire, let their share then be given unto them. Half the earth is sufficient to yield the means of support unto thee and thy counsellors. By acting according to the words of thy well-wishers, thou wilt, O Bharata, win great fame. A quarrel with the sons of Pandu, who are all endued with prosperity, who have their souls under complete control, who are possessed of great intelligence and have conquered their passions, will only divest thee of thy great prosperity. Dispelling the wrath of all thy well-wishers, rule thou thy kingdom as becometh thee, giving, O bull of Bharata's race, unto the sons of Pandu the share that belongeth to them. O son, persecution of the sons of Pandu for full 13 years hath been enough. Augmented by lust and wrath, quench that fire now, O thou of great wisdom. Thou that covetest the wealth of the Pandavas are not a match for them, nor this Suta's son, who is exceedingly wrathful, nor this thy brother Dusasana. Indeed, when Bhishma and Drona and Kripa and Karna and Bhimasena and Dhananjaya and Dhrishtadyumna will be enraged, the population of the earth will be exterminated. Under the influence of wrath, do not, O son, exterminate the Kurus. Let not the wide earth be destroyed for thy sake. Of little understanding as thou art, thou thinkest that Bhishma and Drona and Kripa, and all others will fight for thee with all their might. That will never happen, for as regards these that are endued with self-knowledge, their affection towards the Pandavas and yourselves is equal. If for the sake of the sustenance they have obtained from the king Dhritarashtra, they consent to yield up their very lives, they will not yet be able to cast angry glances upon King Yudhishthira. It is never seen in this world that men acquire wealth by avarice. Give up thy avarice then, O son, and desist, O bull of Bharata's race. Thus ends the 129th section in the Bhagavatyana Parva of the Udyoga Parva. Section 130, Bhagavatyana Parva. Vaisampayana said, disregarding these words of grave import spoken by his mother, Duryodhana went away in anger from that place to the presence of wicked persons. And wending away from the court, the Kuru prince began to consult with Suvala's royal son, Sakuni, most clever in dice. And this was the resolution which Duryodhana and Karna and Suvala's son Sakuni, with Dusasana as their fourth, arrived at. This Janardana, quick in action, seek it with the king Dhritarashtra and Santanu's son, to seize us first. We however shall forcibly seize this tiger among men, Hrishiksa first, like Indra forcibly seizing Virochana's son Bali. Hearing that this one of Vrishni's race hath been seized, the Pandavas will lose their heart and become incapable of exertion, like snakes whose fangs have been broken. This mighty armed one is indeed the refuge and protection of them all. If this granter of wishes, this bull of all the Sattvatas, be confined, the Pandavas with the Somakas will become depressed and incapable of any exertion. Therefore, disregarding Dhritarashtra's cries, we will seize even here this Kesava, who is quick in action, and then fight with the foe. After those sinful men of wicked souls had come to this sinful resolution, highly intelligent Satyaki, capable of reading the heart by signs, soon came to know of it. And because of that knowledge he soon issued out of the court, accompanied by Hridika's son Kritavarman. And Satyaki addressed Kritavarman saying, "Array the troops soon. And accoutred in mail and with thy troops arrayed for battle, wait thou at the entrance of the court, till I represent this matter unto Krishna, unwearied by exertion." Saying this, that hero re-entered the court, like a lion entering a mountain cave. And he first informed the high-souled Kesava and then Dhritarashtra and then Vidura of that conspiracy. And having informed them of that resolution, he laughingly said, "These wicked men intend to commit an act here that is disapproved by the good from consideration of virtue, profit, and desire. They will however never be able to actually achieve it. These fools of sinful souls assembled together, these wretches overwhelmed by lust, anger and yielding themselves up to wrath and covetousness, are about to perpetrate a highly unbecoming deed. Those wretches of little understanding and desirous of seizing the lotus-eyed, are like idiots and children desiring to seize a blazing fire by means of their garments." Hearing these words of Satyaki, Vidura, endued with great foresight, said these words unto the mighty armed Dhritarashtra in the midst of the Kurus. "O king, O chastiser of foes, the hour of all thy sons is come, for they are endeavoring to perpetrate a highly infamous act, however incapable they may be of actually accomplishing it. Alas, united together they desire to vanquish this younger brother of Vasava and seize this lotus-eyed one. Indeed, encountering this tiger among men, this invincible and irresistible one, they will all perish like insects in a blazing fire. If Janardana wisheth, he can send all of them, even if they fight in a body, unto the abode of Yama like an enraged lion dispatching a herd of elephants. He will however never do any such sinful and censurable act. This best of persons of unfading glory, will never deviate from virtue." After Vidura had said these words, Kesava, casting his eyes on Dhritarashtra, said in the midst of those well-meaning persons, who listened to others' words, "O king, if these men desire to chastise me by using violence, permit them to chastise me. O monarch, as regards my chastising them, for I dare chastise all of them together that are so excited with rage, I will not, however, perpetrate any sinful and censurable act. Coveting the possessions of the Pandavas, thy sons will lose their own. If they desire to perpetrate such a deed, Yudhishthira's object will then be easily accomplished, for this very day, O Bharata, seizing these with all that follow them, I can make them over to the sons of Pritha. What is there that is difficult of attainment by me? I will not, however, O Bharata, commit in thy presence, O great monarch, any such censurable deed that can proceed only from wrath and a sinful understanding. Let it be, O king, as this Duryodhana desireth. I give permission, O monarch, to all thy sons to do it." Hearing these words of Kesava, Dhritarashtra addressed Vidura, saying, "Quickly bring hither sinful Duryodhana, who is so covetous of sovereignty with his friends, counselors, brothers, and followers. I shall see if indeed, making one more effort, I can bring him to the right path." Thus addressed by Dhritarashtra, Kshatri once more caused unwilling Duryodhana to enter the court with his brothers and surrounded by the kings that followed him. King Dhritarashtra then addressed Duryodhana, surrounded by Karna and Dusasana and all those kings, saying, "O wretch of accumulated sins, having for thy allies men of despicable acts, infamous is the deed that thou, uniting with sinful friends, seekest to do. Of little understanding thou, infamy of thy race, one like thee alone can seek to do an act so infamous and disapproved by the good, however impossible it may be of being actually achieved. Uniting with sinful allies, wishest thou to chastise this invincible and irresistible one of eyes like lotus leaves? Like a child wishing to have the moon, seekest thou, O fool, to do what cannot be done by the very gods, headed by Vasava with all their strength. Knowest thou not that Kesava is incapable of being withstood in battle by gods and men and Gandharvas and Asuras and Uragas? Like the wind which none can seize with his hands, like the moon which no hand can reach, like the earth which none can support on his head, Kesava is incapable of being seized by force." After Dhritarashtra had said these words, Vidura, casting his eyes on Duryodhana, addressed that vindictive son of Dhritarashtra, saying, "O Duryodhana, Listen now to these words of mine. At the gates of Soba, that foremost of monkeys, known by the name of Dvivida, covered Kesava with a mighty shower of stones. Desirous of seizing Madhava by putting forth all his prowess and exertion, he did not yet succeed in seizing him. Seekest thou to apprehend that Kesava by force? When Sori went to Pragyutisha, Naraka with all the Danavas succeeded not in seizing him there. Seekest thou to apprehend that Kesava by force? Slaying that Naraka in battle, he brought away from his city 1,000 damsels and married them all, according to the ordinance. In the city of Nirmochana, 6,000 mighty asuras failed to seize him with their nooses. Seekest thou to apprehend that Kesava by force? While only a child, he slew Putana and 2 asuras assuming the shape of birds, and O bull of Bharata's race, he held up the mountains of Govardhana on his little finger for protecting the kin from a continuous rain. He hath also slain Arista and Denuka and Chanura of great strength, and Aswaraja and Kansa the doer of evil. He hath slain Jasanda and Vakra, and Sisupala of mighty energy, and Vana in battle, and numerous other kings also have been slain by him. Of immeasurable might, he vanquished King Varuna and also Pavaka, Agni, and on the occasion of bringing down from the celestial regions the heavenly flower called Parijata, he defeated the lord of Sachi himself. While floating on the vast deep, he slew Madhu and Ketabha, and in another birth he slew Hayagriva, horse-necked. He is the maker of everything but is himself made by none. He is the cause of all power. Whatever Sori wisheth, he accomplisheth without any effort. Knowest thou not sinless Govinda of terrible prowess and incapable of deterioration? This one, resembling an angry snake of virulent poison, is the never-ending source of energy. In seeking to use violence towards Krishna, endued with mighty arms and unwearied by exertion, thou wilt with all thy followers perish like an insect falling into fire. Thus ends the 138th section in the Bhagavatyana Parva of the Udyoga Parva. If you enjoyed this audiobook, please like and subscribe to be notified of when new audiobooks are uploaded. Thank you for listening and learning. Shanti.